We are less than a couple of weeks away from the opening of the 102nd British Chess Championships, which are due to take place at the University of Warwick between the 25th of July and the 8th of August 2015. Hello everyone, this is Andrew Martin and I will be the official commentator for the event along with Ravi Kumar, and I'll be producing daily Game of the Day videos for you on the ECF YouTube channel. Well, the 2015 championship itself looks like it's going to be a close run thing. So far we've got 10 Grandmasters entered and a scattering of IMs and FMs, followed by at least 50 other players, hopefuls you might call them, who are bound to cause a few surprises as the event wears on. And of course that adds to the spice of the championship itself. To act as a kind of preview, I've chosen a couple of games today from two of the players who I think are most likely to be challenging for the championship at the end of the 11 rounds. And both of these games come from the recently concluded King's Place Rapid Chess Festival. This is an excellent event, a new event, controlled by Adam Ralph, takes place in North London, and it took place this year on the 11th of July. So very recent, and had an exceptionally strong turnout of players. Well, I think you can't go further than David Howell if you want to know who the favourite for this event is, the 2015 championship. Howell was the winner last year. For me, he looks set to repeat his assault on the title. Yes, there are other players like Jonathan Hawkins, Nick Pert, Simon Williams, Mark Hebden, Keith Arkle. All these guys could give Howell a run for his money. But over the last few years, Howell has become established as a world-class player, and he is enviably consistent. He's also young, and he's able to give an enormous amount of energy to every game. So this alone, gives him a massive advantage over some of the older players. And here he is in action from King's Place. He's got the white pieces, and he's playing International Master Simon Ansell, very experienced campaigner. But of course, these are rapid games. So Howell opened with e4. Ansell played c5, knight f3, knight c6, and now White decided this was a good moment to play c3. Black elected to go into one of the main lines. He played knight f6, White pushed on, Black put his knight on d5, and now d4. So this is absolutely one of the main lines of the c3 Sicilian, and White brings his bishop out to c4 to try and create some pressure. The knight drops back to b6, not an ideal square for the knight, but Black didn't have a great deal of choice, and now White moves his bishop for the second time, putting the knight on c6 in a pin. We're deep in theory. Black takes on e5, and now to maintain any sort of pressure, White has to take back with the knight. And probably Black has to play bishop d7 here, ceding the bishop pair, just to, again, try to break the pressure. White takes, Black recaptures with the queen, and now the knight comes out to c3, setting up the idea of d5, but Black can easily stop it by playing e6. White castles, Black plays bishop e7, and now, left to his own devices, Black's got an easy plan here. He can castle and play his rooks to f8 and c8, to d8 and c8 as indicated by the green squares. White's also got to be careful that his pawn on d4 doesn't just drop off in the middle game. So White's got to do something pretty fast here, and this explains his next move. Queen to g4. White's got to create some pressure here before Black gets those easy moves in. Castles, rooks to the middle, putting pressure on d4. Ansell castles. White takes on c6. Again, this is an attempt to break up another defensive plan by Black. Black's planning to put his bishop on f6, the knight on d5, safe as houses. White moves in to stop that. He takes on c6, taking a bit of pressure off d4, and now sets up mate with bishop h6, which Black easily frustrates by playing bishop f6. And now Black is definitely threatening to take that pawn. So White defends. Well, we're 16 moves into the game. Still in theory, all these moves that have been played have a definite logic to them. Ansell plays king h8. It's clear that he wants to resolve the situation on the king side. But perhaps Black should remain a little calmer here and just play rook fd8. If he can get away with that move, then I think I prefer that to king to h8. And certainly the way Ansel plays this is a bit too defensive for my liking in the coming moves. Yes, white can play the knight to e4, as he does in the game, but then queen to e7. This could be okay for black, as the tactic knight takes f6 check, followed by bishop g5, could be answered by queen to g6, pinning the bishop. So probably after queen to e7, white's got to go rook a c1, rook a c8, rook d3, rook d5. This was all played in a recent game, Naroditsky versus Oparin, Riga 2014. And for me, black has a playable position here. Now contrast this, and it is rather active. Contrast this with the game where Simon plays king h8, white plays knight e4, now black plays rook g8. This looks comparatively very passive. And it also gives white a free hand, which Howe uses to keep up the pressure by playing bishop g5, knight d5, and now rook to d3. Once that rook comes to d3, alarm bells should start ringing in black's camp. The rook's coming across to h3, creating some mating ideas, such as rook takes h7 and then queen h5, which would be mate. So black's got to defend very accurately. He chops off on g5. White takes back with the knight. Amazingly, still seen many times before. And now knight to f6. Well, there was a predecessor played in Italy in 2010 where black played g6 and white played h4. Although this may be defensible for black, for me it looks horribly passive. You know, white's got the upper hand here in every conceivable way. And he went on to win this in 37 moves. It's just this plan with king h8 and rook g8. I mean, is that really necessary? Well, going back to the game, Ansel played knight f6. Howe brought his rook across. Of course, there's no need to move the queen because black can't take it. Rook takes h7 would be mate. h6. And now white puts his queen on f4. And this really is the moment where it all goes wrong for Simon Ansel. I mean, I don't know whether he was in time trouble or whether he completely underestimated white's idea, but it's fairly clear that rook takes h6 check is going to be quite nasty and should not be allowed. Which makes it surprising to see the next move by black, rook g f8. Not very nice. What should he do? Well, I think he's got to go queen e7 and try and take the medicine. White can play knight e4. And possibly it's this position that Simon Ansel didn't like, because of course he can't take the knight. Rook takes h6 check, he's mate straight away. But after knight e4, I think we can now move that rook on g8 to d8. And this position, quite surprisingly, may be defensible for black. For instance, let's say white gives the exchange, which I think looks best. Then king g7. And after knight h5 check, king g6. Just keep attacking that knight. Is it so easy to put black away in this position? Not so certain. And going back to rook g d8, if white tries to win a pawn and go for the endgame here, just chopping everything off, to me this looks wrong. I mean, I think black should be able to defend this double rook endgame, for instance with rook b8, b3 and now rook b4. Black is getting active here and he must have good defensive chances. So I think we can see this as really the turning point. Simon plays rook gf8 and of course Howe needs no second invitation. In comes the rook. He takes on f6 check, king g8. And possibly it's the next move which Simon underestimated, rook e1. Turns out there's no need to move the knight on g5. Well, I mean, if black takes, we just recapture and then the rook's coming up. The second rook lift of the game either to e3 or e4 and it will be mate. So after rook e1, queen comes to d5. Queen takes h6 now and improved circumstances now that the black queen isn't covering the second rank. Queen to f5, knight to e4, threatening knight f6, f6 to stop it. And this move was accompanied by either a loss on time or resignation. But as you can see, rook e3 is going to finish the job quite nicely. The black king can't run to f7, knight d6 check. So that small game alone teaches us that if you give David Howe the slightest opportunity, he'll put you away. And as I say, in terms of world-class players, I mean, he's probably the only really world-class player in the field. So I install him as clear favourite for the event. Now, the other players, well, literally any of them could win it. The players like Hawkins or for instance, Pert or Williams or Arkle, all these guys could win it. But I've got a soft spot for a guy who's never actually won the British Chess Championship, and that is Mark Hebden. Will 2015 be his year? Well, it turned out he was also playing in the King's Place Rapid Chess Festival, and here's an entertaining game he played with black against Tom Rendell, international master, playing with the white pieces, who is an exceptionally dangerous rapid chess player. And here he starts with the idiosyncratic bird's opening, f4, one of his favourite ideas. Objectively, can't give white too much out of the opening, but Rendell is trying to steer the game really into less familiar territory, because Hebden is fantastic in theoretical positions. You know, he knows his repertoire back to front. Perhaps against f4, he's not quite so confident. Well, the game proceeds along very orthodox lines. And now Rendell plays pawn up to c3. It looks like he's going for the stone wall. And he confirms this by playing d4. Knight df6. An interesting and unstereotyped move. Hebden's got a plan in mind. He wants to control the e4 square. And he's going to do this by manoeuvring the knight on g8 via h6 to f5 to d6. And thence, one of the knights can come to e4 as necessary. It's the ease with which black can gain equality in this type of position that puts a lot of players off playing the bird. Because, you know, that's a nice, easy plan for black to follow. He's bound to have a good position. And what is white doing? I mean, with black, this sort of thing is permissible. With white, you know, you should be looking for a bit more than this. So it's up to Rendell to show what he's got against this plan from Hebden. Well, Rendell sticks a knight in on e5 at the earliest opportunity. Hebden continues with his plan, and now queen to f3. Is white looking to play e4? Well, Hebden stops him. g4. Black puts his knight in on e4. White takes it off. That knight on d2 is passive. Black, of course, recaptures with the knight. And now a tactical idea, bishop b5 check. Which, of course, Hebden is only too willing to fall into as he plays c6, allowing Rendell's obvious intention here. Knight takes c6. And although this on the face of it looks like it should be playable, in actual fact, this turns out to lead to a much better position for black by force. So if we retract just to here, I think we can say that white's whole opening play is a little bit artificial. Black's in control of the position. This move g4 looks a little bit out of place. I like black's position already. So as a plan against the stone wall, this manoeuvre of the knight to e4 could be something to consider. But let's see the game as it gets rather crazy now. White takes on c6, and now black plays queen to b6. And I'm pretty sure Rendell saw this move, but he thought perhaps he was garnering an awful lot of pawns after knight takes a7 check. Well, it turns out, consulting the machine, that bishop d7 is probably black's best move here. You can actually allow bishop takes d7 check because that knight on a7 is going down the drain. But in the game, Hebden decided to play king f8. Rendell snapped off the bishop. Black took on b5. Perhaps Mark played this way because he liked the control of the light squares. But of course this allows White to get another pawn there on e7. Queen e2, and now off came the queens. Queen takes e2 check, king takes e2. So we reach a rather peculiar position where nominally White seems to have enough material for the sacrificed knight. He's got 3 pawns, but in reality you have to prefer Black. And the problem for White is he's very, very passive. It's going to be a long, long time before those pawns are going to show any sort of strength against the knight. And meanwhile, I think Black can play for a serious queenside initiative with the help of moves like b5 and then moving this rook across. But Hebden is alert to every detail in the position, and he kicks off with an excellent move now, h5. Disrupting White's formation before we can even consolidate those pawns. This is a really good move. Well, what can White play? He can't protect the pawn with his king. There's a fork on f2 looming. He can't play h3. He's got to push on. I mean, if he takes on h5, the pawn h2 is very weak. So he has to push on, and now b5. After which, Black is fully in control. Bishop d2 was answered by rook hc8 and rook hc1 by king to e6. Bishop e1 was answered by bishop f8. Hebden really knows how to put his pieces on their best squares. This is the accumulated experience of decades of play. White plays king to d3 and now rook to c6. Rook to c2 was answered by king to f5. White's challenge is to somehow engineer some sort of pawn lever in this position. He'd like to get c4 in, but that seems an awful long way off. And if he can't, Black is totally in charge of all the activity in the position. So b3, okay, here we go. He's looking for a4 or c4, rook a3. Continuing to clamp down on White's position. Rook b1 and now b4. This was the move Rendell did not want to see. And he took on b4. What else could he have done? Was there anything else? Well, he could have tried rook b2. And then there may have been some liquidations on the c3 square, something like this. But even here, it's very difficult to get the pawns rolling on the queen side. White's still all tied down, and now king to e4 really emphasises Black's superiority. In fact, after king d2, king f3, the computer evaluates this as +3 for Black, which is quite sufficient to say that, well, I think Black is winning this position. I mean, White can play king d3, Black plays rook a6, and it's still impossible to get the queenside pawns rolling, because after a4 we've got rook e6, very strong, and after b4 we've got rook a3 check, also very strong. So White's all tied down. In the game, Rendell tried c takes b4, but this is rather desperate because it immediately allows this capture on a2. King came to d3, knight came to d6, complete control of the position, making room for the knight to come to f5, but bishop c3, knight comes into e4, bishop e1, White can do nothing now. A rook check, king b7, rook b1, bishop d6, h4, king b6, rook c1, hoping to get down the back. Rook b2, turns out that it's Black's activity that matters most, and Hebden is very efficient at mopping up these positions. King c7, Rendell resigned. So if Hebden gets on a roll in any tournament, he can win it. So I place him as one of the outsiders for the event, but it's very possible he could step in and win. Well, I hope you'll join me on this YouTube channel over the 2 weeks of the end of July and the first week in August for the game of the day, and I look forward to the pleasure of your company. We also look forward to an excellent 102nd British Chess Championship.